Welcome to the Family Tree Live panel discussion. And this time we're going to be talking about all sorts of family history projects and things you might like to get involved in. And we're joined today by Keith Penfold from Family Search, Janet Few, who's going to be talking about her new history-inspired novel and very much family history-inspired as well, and lots of themes which tie into today's life, and Rachel Bellaby, who's Deputy Editor on Family Tree, and me, I'm Helen Tubby, I'm Editor of Family Tree. So I don't know about you, but I think lots of families have been very excited to see their kids going back to school. There's definitely a back to school vibe in the air. And so we're thinking about these family history projects, things we might want to take on ourselves to learn a bit more and try and make good use of this autumn term, getting more family history going. So Rachel, have you got any particular missions or projects that you set yourself for the autumn?
Yeah, so for me, this is a great time of year. If I've not been doing much family history over the summer, this is when I really get back to it, back to school vibes. So I've got two projects. One is my family tree charts, which are a bit of a mess, names scribbled on them, dates crossed out, some in pencil, some in pen. So I'm thinking new stationery, new pens, lovely new family tree charts. And then I'm going to write everything up really nicely and have beautiful versions that I can share with people, hang on the wall and so on. Next, Story of Our Street project, which we've been running over the summer. If anyone's not heard about this, details on our website. Basically, what you're doing is looking at the history of your street or the street where your ancestors lived and finding out as much as you can about that street, who used to live there and so on. So what I'm going to do is go to Bradford, where my great-grandparents lived. I'm going to take photos of the street, come back home, look at census, street directions. I'm going to try and make like a cute little virtual scrapbook with photos, look who used to do what job on the street, what shops were there, and build up a picture of that and really help bring my family tree to life. So busy times.
I like that idea as well, because I think lots of us are going to be quite locked down and kind of staying at home and staying in our own area. So finding out about things a bit more on our doorstep are kind of good projects to do, aren't they?
Yeah, and you can make as much of it as you want. You can explore more than one street. You can do the street that you live on if you don't feel that you want to go too far, or if you want to go a bit further flung to see where your ancestors were, and just as much or as little as you want. One of those nice dip in, dip out projects that you can just pick up as and when you've got time.
Yeah, sounds good. And Janet, you've finished quite a massive project recently, haven't you? Because you've got your new book. I've got it here, actually. I've read it already, and it's really good fun. It's I shouldn't say it's fun, because it actually covers some quite traumatic ideas. But first of all, I think it's such an impressive thing, and anyone like me who hasn't written books would be so impressed by somebody who has actually managed to turn that pipe dream of thinking, I want to write a book, into actually doing it. So how do you go about it, like the research and kind of putting it all together? What does it feel like? What sort of tips can you offer, Janet?
Well, I think it doesn't matter whether you're doing a whole book or just a little bit that reflects your own family story. And a lot of historical novels that you read sometimes seem to be a little thin on the research side, but I didn't want to do that. To me, the research is half the fun. And this particular one is based on a true story. So it's a story that's quite well known locally about three women who end up being put to death for the crime of witchcraft. And I wanted to look at it from a more forensically genealogical point of view and perhaps try and get rid of some of the folklore that's grown up around this story. So I approached it like a family historian, and I began to research all the characters, the three women themselves, and the other two who were actually also accused but managed to get off, those who were the accusers. And I really looked at their families as I would if they were my own family, and was able to come up with some quite interesting insights, I think, into their lives. And then it kind of sort of told itself, really, and I particularly chose to have a modern strand to it, which follows the story of a young girl who is actually doing that historical research as part of a school project.
I think you can definitely tell when you read your book how much research has gone into it, and things like, as a family historian, we'll often maybe read about settlement acts, and we'll read about poverty from quite a kind of factual, documented, clinical point of view. Whereas it was really fascinating in your book to see how you'd kind of done the family history research side of it, as you just mentioned. You're looking at the records, but then you'd really drawn that out and shown the impact that it would have on people's lives and how traumatic it would be to be resettled back to a place that you maybe haven't lived for 10, 15 years. You left when you were a toddler, so basically be thrown back in a strange town. So that you really brought that to life, and the dialogue as well. I loved your dialogue, Janet, as well. I could just hear you saying it in my voice when I read it.
Yes, I mean, as a historian first, novelist second. This is my second novel, but the dialogue was always something that I thought, well, I can write non-fiction. Can I actually write the dialogue to go with it? And in fact, both the stories I've done involve a court case. So you've got what purport to be fairly accurate transcriptions of what was actually said at the time. So I kind of started with that. And I'm thinking, well, this is what was said. And then I kind of built out from there. But it's difficult, particularly if you're writing about the 17th century. You can't write as people would actually have spoken, but you still want to give that flavour that you're not today. Getting that balance right, and then regional dialect as well, which makes even more trouble.
So if anyone who is like lots of us, if you've done lots of family history research, maybe, did you find it difficult to launch from the research stage to go, right, now I have to get creative and start doing the novel writing stage, or did it evolve simultaneously?
I did quite a lot of research before I started. So probably about a year's worth of research, and then about a year with a bit more research, but more concentrating on turning it into a finished product, really. And I mean, the same would happen if you were writing up your own. I mean, these aren't my ancestors, but they could have been. And in fact, I did start because I was very keen to do something that drew parallels between witchcraft accusations and the present day. And I did start thinking, I've got a ancestress or a sister or an ancestor who was accused of witchcraft. And I thought, oh, I'll tell her story. And then I realized actually all I knew was that she was accused of witchcraft and got off. And I thought, I'm going to have trouble weaving that into 80,000 words. So I chose to use this slightly more well-known story.
Yeah. Rachel, you're a published author as well. Have you got any other tips, for instance, maybe about how you manage your time? Because all of us have lives and doing work, looking after families, all sorts of things. So actually getting a book out is such a massive achievement, because normally most people don't have the luxury of being a full-time author. It's something they have to pile on top of their existing commitment. So what could you say to somebody who's thinking, I'm busy already, but I'm passionately want to write a book. How do I get it done?
Yeah. So for me, I was, like many people, like you say, it wasn't my day job. I was doing a full-time job, 3 children at home. With being from a magazine background, I quite liked working on things in small, short chunks and working quite intensively and then stopping. So what I did was, as I worked through each chapter, I pretended that it was like a magazine article and it felt quite achievable. I would do that, move on to the next bit of the chapter, little and often, and then it didn't feel too intimidating. I just said in my head to myself that I was writing these articles, then brought them together, and before I knew it, the book had appeared, and it just didn't feel too intimidating and felt really doable. Anything else came up, I just kept going. As long as I did a little bit each day, I told myself I was getting there, and somehow I did.
Yeah, that sounds good. And, of course, all of these projects that anyone who's holding the book in their hand, you've got this lovely glossy end result, but research is like that really backbone thing which has to happen first. And Keith, like family research is just invaluable, isn't it? All the billions of records that it has, which we can use to search. So do you have like a particular favourite aspect of something you like doing on family search or researching, or how do you feel family search, its value as a research tool? What do you like about it?
Well, I think that one of the things that often overlooked is the wiki, which a lot of your viewers may be aware of, but a lot of people don't know how to use the wiki, and that is a really invaluable tool. It has maps going down to the parish level, even to the street level, showing back historically the areas that people come from, and it also gives a huge amount of background information that's helpful for doing research, discovering about places. It's not about individuals, but it's about places we come from, record sets that are available. And I think the wiki is really good because fundamentally, if you want to learn something about where your family come from, or you just want to do research, having that understanding of the broader area, knowing, looking at the maps and looking at the jurisdictions for, say, the parishes, for the chapelries, or just to understand where they would have lived, where they would have gone to work, why did they live in such an area. Looking back and using the wiki is a great resource. And also people can contribute to that. So if you have people who are watching this who have knowledge about the local area, they can contribute as well. It's not, this is pristine and it's all there and we know everything. It's very much a learning experience thing. So if somebody's got a particular interest, they can indulge and be part of it as well and contribute to it. So again, during that summer break or now in September, if we're sitting back and think, well, I know about my local area, some historical information that may be useful to others, you can share that, and that can again be added and contributed to the wiki. And I think that makes a huge difference to what people do, because we all know we can go and look for births, deaths and marriage records and these things, but understanding, a colleague of mine was sharing something recently with me, and he'd found the house that his great grandparents lived in. Now, he lives in America, but was looking in England in the 1850s, and he found on the maps on the wiki the actual house they lived in. It was named. Now,
Yeah.
you know, we might
Yeah.
brush off, but to him that was really exciting to actually think,
Yeah.
you know, going back those generations, this was where his family come from. He could actually find out where that house was. And again, it ties in what Rach was about, the street experience. That would just be fantastic to put that together with that wider experience, learning about who were the neighbours, you know, and making people's lives become real. And I think that's what family search is about. It isn't just about, you know, being born and died and what happened in between. It's about who did they know, who did they associate with, who did they go to school with, they went to school, or what made them emigrate and move away. So the wiki is a really good tool to build on that, I think, and to use to connect into the lives of people. Because otherwise, I think family history can be very much just, you know, a series of so-and-so lived, so-and-so died, so-and-so happened. But knowing people is far more, I think, fulfilling for me personally. And I think a lot of people, that's why they do the family history. They want to kind of live part of the lives of their ancestors and understand why I'm the person I am today, why I live where I live today. It's because of decisions that people made. So I recommend anybody have a look at the wiki. It doesn't just cover the UK and Ireland. It is a global network of information that's available on familysearch.org. And so we're always hoping the contributors add in more. And if people want to have a look at it, please, if they've got any questions and not sure, they can always go to our help online and get some answers. But I really do think it's about connecting and making people become real.
I think it's great. And I think there's over 90,000 different wiki pages now, isn't it? It's just phenomenal.
Exactly, yeah. If you can read them all, if you've got nothing else to do, you know, that'd be a great way to spend September if you need to. But yeah, there are thousands and thousands of articles on all sorts of different things that are available. And some of them are very specialist, just the interest of individuals. But others will be generally interesting to a large number of people who just want to find out about a little village in Sheffield. Do we know anything about it? You know,
yeah, it sounds like, Janet, you should be adding late 17th century Bideford to one of the wikis if you haven't already.
Perhaps I should.
Yeah, that would be great, Janet. For your next novel, of course.
Yeah. And then, so getting connected, that's a big theme, isn't it, of the next Roots Tech, which you've got to look forward to. So could you tell us a bit about that, like dates and anything else?
Absolutely, yeah, we're really excited because obviously of the virus situation. Roots Tech Connect is going to be happening next February, the 25th to the 27th, and it's going to be virtual. It's going to be online, 3 days, 24 hours a day. We're going to go global, so we're having a focus on each continent and moving with the sun. As the sun goes round for the 3 days, we'll be having events. So there'll be live events, there'll be classes from every country that we can cover. We'll have a particular block covering the UK and Ireland, about 4 hours on one of those days. So you can watch the live sessions or you can watch them recorded. There's no cost to attend or to watch them, but you do need to register at rootstech.org just so we can connect you up and give you information. But yeah, we're going to cover every country in the world that we can do with researchers, with small classes and longer classes. There'll be several hundred lessons on there for people to connect from and learn from. So if you can't watch it live, you can go back and watch it at your leisure. And it's going to be really different for us because obviously we've done Roots Tech London, Roots Tech in America. We're going to try and make that connected in that gathering and belonging bit happen online. So I'm not sure we're going to have live dancing and singing, but we're certainly going to have some entertainment from some celebrities, as well as all the core elements of Roots Tech, which are the classes that people want to learn about. So if you want to pop in and watch the classes in German, you'll be able to do that in Italian or South America. We're going to be doing Australasia, the Pacific. We're literally going to have speakers from every region of the world and hopefully from as many countries as we can do. So a lot to pull together, as you can appreciate. You know, there are lots of these strands out here that kind of like all over the place. We've got to sort of put it together. But that's the idea about it. We'll be announcing keynote speakers, obviously, very soon. And we will be drip feeding out the individual speakers for classes as they all come on board. Some of the classes will be shorter. We're particularly looking at 20-minute little segments for people. There will be some of the longer normal classes which take an hour plus, but most people want short, sharp, give me the information I can dive into right now. So we're very excited, and there'll be a lot of information out there, hopefully in the coming weeks and months. And obviously Family Tree Magazine will be a great place to find out more about what we're doing as we work closely with ourselves and others. And if anybody's interested, rootstech.org is a place to go to.
Thank
So
you.
hopefully that'll be good and people will come and join it. We're hoping to make it obviously the world's biggest family history event ever. You know, we had 17,000 people come to our last event in Salt Lake, and we want to make this global and have hundreds of thousands of people join us at some stage. So I'm very excited and very anxious at the same time.
Janet, on Facebook, a question's actually come in for you, skipping back to the books topic, and it's probably my fault for not dealing with it sooner. And it's Deborah, and she asks, did you have an overall plan for your books? Did you know where you were definitely going to be going with them, or did they kind of evolve? Did they kind of work themselves out as you were writing?
I think because they're both true stories, there is a plan. So I didn't have to work too hard to devise the plot, because it was there for me. So I did have a vague idea that the emphasis that I took changed a little bit. And in this one in particular, each chapter is seen from a different person's viewpoint. And initially I'm going to have a chapter about this person, that person, and a couple of those I did change, because as I actually got to writing them, I felt, no, I think I'd be better off going with the Anglican vicar rather than the nonconformist minister for this chapter, that sort of thing. So I did have a bit of a change, but I think because it was a true story, the plan wrote itself, really.
Mm. Well, one of the things Keith is talking about, all the different nationalities, and I guess that's going to, with Rootstech, that's really going to show us all the different takes that we all have on our family history, how we do family history, what we value about family history and everything else. One of the things in your book was a theme which is so current, and you touched on it earlier in the chat, and you were saying about, I think, the themes of witchcraft, prejudice, and how much communities and societies can ostracize people and judge against them for small reasons. And so with your book, are you kind of hoping, because you cover witchcraft, and as a reader, your heart will go out to the witches, you can just see how they're unjustly judged against with our modern eyes. So you're kind of hoping that we can learn these lessons from history and maybe be a bit more open-minded about any prejudices we might have today, and think maybe is that prejudice just...
That would be lovely. I don't want it to turn it into a sort of a preaching vehicle, but yeah, one of the reasons why I included the modern strand was because I think there are so many parallels. And so as you follow this 16-year-old girl's research path and her private life as well, which is, she's bullied, and so she has certain things in common with the women who were accused of witchcraft. So I did like to try and draw the parallels, because I think there are so many that can be drawn, because human nature doesn't change. I mean, the actual vehicle for intolerance and maybe who we're targeting changes, but the human nature is the same, sadly, in many cases. So yes, I think it's very important that when we look at our ancestors, we think they might have had different pressures, but there were still pressures, and behaviours are similar in a lot of ways.
Does anybody else here, does anyone feel like they've learned lessons from doing their family history? Has it changed your outlook on, I know, for instance, I'll say an example from my own. I remember when I found out about my great granny who got married in, I think, 1918, and she had taken many years off her age. And when I found this out, I was probably about 30, and I was a bit scandalized by her. I was like, oh, she's just, how fake, how insincere, and I kind of felt a bit, she was a woman I knew and liked as an old lady, and I felt a bit like, what was she doing lying on her document? And then as the years went by, and I've got I guess maybe hopefully older and wiser and nicer, and I've looked more into the history, and you find out, of course, there's so many men who died in the First World War, there's fewer men to go around. She may be feeling really vulnerable. She was 27, which in those days was older, because it's just a different world to get married and so she just coolly shaved 8-10 years off her age and then carried on for the rest of her life with her new and improved younger age. Anyway, so that taught me a lot of lessons. Partly made me feel a lot more compassionate to her, and partly it made me feel, gave myself a slap on the wrist not to be so judgmental when I look at my ancestors' lives. So has anyone else had instances like that where they've learned something from their ancestors or their research? Like Rachel, have you found?
Yeah, I think same to you, getting older, getting a bit nicer, hopefully. My great-grandparents came over to England from Ireland, and as a kid, we just heard all these lovely, funny stories about what it was like in Ireland. And then gradually, as I did more family history research, I started to realise what a big thing that would have been, bringing the family over. You've got to find jobs, you've got to make friends. People might not have liked Irish people being in this Yorkshire community at that time. All of that intolerance that their great-grandparents would have faced. It's very different to the stories that I heard as a child. They'd uprooted the children, and just understanding it a bit more deeply as I've had children of my own, what that was like. And that's what I love about family history. You can start to weave that into your own life and it becomes really fascinating.
Yeah. Have you, Keith, or not, have you kind of known quite a lot about your family history from the outset, so you haven't come across these surprises and had to relearn anything?
I think I've had a few surprises where things have happened, and you look and suddenly find out when you do the maths that somebody was born well before mum and dad, grandparents were married and so on, and you can look back and think, oh, as you say, be judgmental about the situation that people live in, but unless you understand their lives and where they've come from and what's going on, it's very difficult now to be judgmental. But I think when you're younger, you're naturally just on your high horse and pedestal of, that's not the kind of thing we do. But everybody has some scandals in their family history. I think that's all families are like that, aren't they? And that's an interesting thing when you come across those things, because it naturally, look at what they did, scandalous. And at the time, it probably was scandalous to the neighbours and everybody around them. But these things happen, and that's I've come across a couple of times. I think you just learn from that and think, if it was your own children now with situations, and obviously the world is different, but how would you deal with those kind of things? Would you be like somebody parents were and kick the kids out, or would you just embrace the family, just move on? So I think it's very interesting to see those things, and age makes you much better to actually be more willing to, I think, accept things than when you're young, as you say, think, oh, that's terrible. So.
Yeah. I think also family history, it does, when you research more and more ancestors, all their different lives and the way they spin out, it does make you feel more connected, because you realise that they all have their ups and downs, and your own life has its ups and downs, and that's just life, and it's just fine. That's just how it happens, isn't it? So I think we're pretty much getting near the end of time. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining the panel session today. And if anybody would like to buy Janet's book, which I'll just give you a quick better look at the cover, and it's called Sins Red as Scarlet. And if you love historical novels, that's great. And if you love ones with genealogy in them as well, this is even better. And you can buy it from her website, which is thehistoryinterpreter.wordpress.com. And then if you want to catch up about RootsTech, because of course you do, because it's free and you can join in February, and then that's rootstech.org. That's right, isn't it, Keith?
That's correct, yeah.
And then, of course, for Family Tree, that's me and Rachel, and it's just family-tree.co.uk. And we'll have lots more news and projects and things coming up over the months to come. So thank you very much for listening then. Bye-bye.